What's going on, y'all? Hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody having a good night. So I wasn't really sure if I was gonna make a video tonight. I went out to eat. Me, Rachel, and Mercy, and Major was at wrestling practice. We just got home, and it's 8:44. So usually I put these videos out about 9:30. This video isn't gonna make the 9:30 cut. I'll probably push it out at 10:30. I got a call today from Antoine. So for those of you that don't know, Antoine is one of the very first people that I interviewed that got a overwhelming response and support from the viewers, from y'all. So let me just fill some of y'all in that don't know Antoine. Antoine he's a black male. He is from Baltimore. He's probably, I would say, right around maybe 50 years old, late 40s, 50, right around there. Antoine he's a gay man, and he used to support his habit through male prostitution. So that was something that so the first day I met him literally on Kensington Allegheny. And I did an interview with him that first night, and the interview was like 35 minutes, and the interview was extremely powerful interview. Those of you that know Antoine know that he is very well spoken. He's very good with his words. He could be a preacher. He's just very, very well spoken. He gets his point across very well. So we did the interview. Like I said, the interview was about 35 minutes long. I got home, and on the way home, I was just replaying this interview back in my head and how well he spoke and how well he described and got his point across. I got home. I told Rachel about it. I started to download the footage, and I realized there was no audio. The whole interview took place, and my microphone wasn't all the way plugged in. There was no audio whatsoever. And I realized, I was like, damn, this is, up to that point, it was probably one of the best interviews that I had done. And I realized, I was like, damn, I got this great interview. And there's no audio to it. So from my home to Kensington is a little over 3 hours away. So needless to say, I went to bed that night, and I was disappointed that I didn't get the audio, just because it was a very special interview. I knew that right away. The way he described addiction, what it had done to him, and the places that it had took him. Up to that point, we hadn't heard anybody else, let alone a man, describe what addiction had done to him, the places that addiction had led to him, and be that honest and open, to the point he was brutally honest. He was very forthcoming in that interview. It bothered me. I felt to a certain point that I had wasted his time. He started crying in the interview, and I was like, damn, I wasted his time. I made him, or I had a hand in him recalling these emotions and past traumas, and for nothing, because the point was to bring that to the audience, and it wasn't going to happen because no audio. So I woke up that morning and shot straight back to Kensington. Thankfully, I was able to find him. I explained everything to him. I didn't know how he was going to take it, right? I didn't know if he was going to be upset. I didn't know if he was going to be disappointed. I didn't know, but I felt like any reaction that he would have had, he would have been justified. And his reaction let me know sort of a glimpse into what type of person I was dealing with. And from that, we built a friendship. And when I told him, look, brother, there was no audio. Is there any chance we could sit down and speak again? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Basically, like God allowed us to cross paths. So he said, you know, I'm just as willing as you are. Let's do it again. And that's what we did. And from there had been many interviews that were done with him. There was many that I never put out. There was a lot of times that we would get together, hang out. He would help me with the lives. He'd help me to distribute clothing. And he was in his addiction there for, you know, from the time that I met him, probably a good 3 years. And he'd go, you know, he'd get locked up or he'd go to jail or, you know, he'd go to a program and he'd get clean for a little while. And there was even one time on a live where I had sort of talked him, well, we had sort of talked him, me and everybody that was on the live that night had sort of talked him into going into rehab. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, I drop him off at rehab. 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up to him calling me, telling me that the rehab told him that he didn't need inpatient programming, that he needed outpatient programming. Now, mind you, this is a man that was living on the streets homeless. This is a man that was prostituting to support his addiction. This is a man that needed inpatient program. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And even when he went into the programming, he told them that he was suicidal. He told them that he had a plan and how to carry out his suicide. And that's how fed up he was with getting high and being in the street. And they still cut him loose, not even 6 hours later. So that morning, I went and picked him up, and he was very defeated. You know, when you go to check into rehab or you go to a hospital and you tell them that you're suicidal and you have a plan on how to carry that suicide out, they're not supposed to let you go. Literally, by law, they're not supposed to let you go. They're supposed to place you in treatment or in, at very least, a psych hold for a certain amount of time. And they didn't. They let him go right out to the streets and told him, oh, all you need is outpatient. He was defeated. It takes a lot of strength, a lot of courage to build up and muster the strength to say, you know what, I'm going to go into rehab. I'm going to go into detox. Because we already know that we're going to feel the worst withdrawal. You know, we're going to feel the worst of mental pain, physical pain, everything else. You know, we're just going to feel it's not going to be a good time. And he had built up that courage, and then they had just basically thrown him back out on the streets. And he ended up getting high for the next couple years. And then a couple months ago, he reached out to me, and he told me, Frank, I had to spend a little bit of time in jail. I'm in a rehab. I've been doing good. And we kept in contact. He'd message me, you know, we'd talk on the phone. And then he called me today, and we were on the phone for probably a good 45 minutes. And he sent me a couple pictures. I'll put them here in this video right now just so you guys can see them. And he's looking good. And he's talking good. And he's been clean now for, I want to say maybe like 3 or 4 months. He said, you know, he's working on himself. He's going to counseling. He's dealing with his probation officer. You know, he's just able to see some light at the end of the tunnel, but also realizing that he has a lot of work to go. Realizes that he's not halfway into his journey. Realize that he's just taking the first initial steps in his recovery. And he told me, he said, I was able to get clean many times, but I never could stay clean. I want to stay clean now. The Antoine that I heard today, I have never heard before. And it made me very optimistic for his situation. I'm very hopeful. I know if Antoine is able to stay clean, he will do great things. 100%. That I know. Anybody that has spoken to him, anybody that has heard him spoke realizes that there's something special about him. He has a gift. I think it's the way he's relatable, the way that he speaks without fear. He speaks without fear of judgment or ridicule. He's a special person. He made my day today when I got that call from him. He just said, Frank, I want to thank you for always being there and always being supportive. And I had to tell him, and he started crying on the phone. I had to tell him, Antoine, I could be 120% supportive. I could be 120% in your corner, pushing you day in and day out. But I said, unless you decide I'm going to push back just as much, unless you decide that I'm going to fight for my life and my recovery just as much, if not more, nothing will happen. I said, you could have 100 people rooting for you, cheering you on, praying for you, willing to sacrifice for you. And until you decide, you know what, I'm going to do this, you're not going to be successful in your recovery or anything in life. And I said the opposite also goes. You could have absolutely nobody cheering you on, nobody in your corner. And if you decide today is going to be the last day that I destroy my life, today is going to be the absolute last day that I indulge and get high, you will succeed. That doesn't only go for addiction. That goes in any aspect of our life. If we come to our breaking point and decide, this is it, I'm done, then that will be the day that we're done. That will be the day that we decide to take our life back in our hands and move forward. And it'll be the beginning to a new start. It will be the beginning of our new life. And it might not be easy. You know, I can guarantee you, a matter of fact, that it won't be easy, but 100% it will be worth it. So I guess this message is for Antoine as well as everybody else and myself out there. If we find ourselves struggling, if we find ourselves dealing with depression and thinking that everything is going wrong around us, everything is going wrong for us, and we decide not to give in, we decide to stand firm and say, you know what? I'm going to ignore all these distractions. I'm going to ignore all these temporary situations. And I want better. I want to be in control of my life. We will be in control of our lives. So no matter what you're going through out there, y'all, myself included, no matter what we deal with on a day in and day out basis, it could be temporary, it could be permanent, it doesn't matter. If we decide we're not going to break, and if we decide that we're not going to look back, but instead we're going to look forward and continue to march for that goal, it will happen. Once again, it will not be easy, but it will be worth it. It will happen. There will come a time, a couple years down the line, where you look back and you remember that exact day. You remember everything that was going on. You remember the people that were there for you and the people that were there against you. You remember everything that was going wrong in your life. And you remember the things that were going right in your life. And you're going to remember, this is the day that I decided to change my life. And you will not regret it. Remember to be kind, loving, and patient. Stay blessed.
Again, sir.